Hey guys, welcome back to another tutorial today. In today's video, we're going to learn how to make this beautiful corset blouse or top that has a tulle gathered kimono sleeve. If that is what you want to learn how to make, then keep watching this video to the very end and let's head straight to it. So firstly, we are starting with the pattern drafting process, which is actually the most important process. Now, what I am going to do first is to contour my underbust. You want to contour your underbust starting from your bust apart measurement with 1 inch on both sides. So when you've marked 1 inch on both sides from your bust apart measurement, you go ahead to join it like this. From bust point to underbust, then to the waistline. Thereby forming a new contour dart. The next thing we are going to do is from your bust point line, you want to move upwards by 1 inch. Then you want to come inwards by 0.5 inches or 0.75 inches as the case may be. So now this underbust line, I'm going to kind of fold in the darts. So I taped it down. Next thing I'm going to do is to mark in my bust circumference. Your bust circumference is distance between your bust point to your underbust. So whatever yours is, you're going to be marking it round so you can form a circle. You're going to mark it round. Your bust distance between your bust point and your underbust. You're going to be taking it all the way around so you can form a circle, even if the circle is not fully complete, but so you can form a circle. It's sort of going to give you a guide on how your corset is going to look like. So now having done that, I've gone ahead to mark in my circle and this is what it looks like. I still have dotted lines to complete the circle, but I didn't make it obvious. Now from this point, you're going to be marking 2 inches. 2 inches or 2.5 inches as the case may be. So I extended my circle to that 2 inches point. I went ahead to remove the tape now. So some part of the circle didn't get to that point. I'm going to be, making them get to that point where the dart of the underbust started from. Now I'm marking the midpoint of my shoulder. And with my ruler, I will connect it to my bust point. So having done that now, on that very line, I'm going to be marking my bust circumference, which is 2 inches. And on top of the 2 inches, I went ahead to mark extra half an inch for this tutorial. You mark an extra half an inch, okay, on top of your bust circumference on that line. So now I'm going to be giving my corset top a nice finishing and structure. Kind of an artistic design. I hope you understand what I mean. Okay, so I'm going into drawing what my corset top should look like. So at this point, this is what it looks like. I'm going to be determining my neckline, how much intake I want to go in from the shoulder. So this is up to you, whatever you want to do. I used 1.5 inches. You can decide to also use 1.5 inches. And I connected it to this point of the center front like so. So I connected it to this point of the center front like so. Because we are going to be having a whole lot of opening and that center front, we don't want it to gap. So I'm going to be contouring the center front. I've marked in my contour guideline from my neckline to the bust point. And then I'm going ahead now to mark in the dart, which is 0.5 inches for the contour dart, for the contour line. And I'm connecting that 0.5 inches to the bust point like so, then back to the neckline like so. So this particular point now, or this particular space now, is my dart for the neckline contour. At this point, I went ahead to cut out the neckline, and this is what we have now. I'm going to be cutting open my side bust dart. And then I'm going ahead now to cut open the neckline contour dart. I'll close it up, then transfer the dart to my side bust dart. Can you see I've tightened the neckline? It's not going to gap. So that very space there, or that very part that looks like the line is irregular, I'm just going to cut it out like so. Did you see I didn't tamper with the shoulder, only that space. So at this point, this is what your pattern should look like. Now you will get your sleeve. Remember this kimono or mesh net, this tule, whatever effect went into the sleeve. So I got my sleeve. You're going to take the front part of your sleeve and tape it to the front bodies. Of course, we're working with the front bodies. So now I'm going to be cutting my sleeve into two, like separating the front from the back. It will enable me work well on this particular design. So I separated it. And then from this part of my sleeve, which is actually my upper round arm, you can decide where you want yours to stop. I've gone ahead to cut out or detach the other part of the sleeve. I went ahead to trace it out also. Can you see that? I went ahead to trace it out also. Can you see? So I'll set out the traced part aside. Can you see the way I traced it? There are some things I did not include. Please. I'm going to set it aside now. Then we'll go back to working on this pattern. I'm going to be detaching the sleeve now so we can just work on the pattern and cut out our corset. You're going to be marking 1 inch here. Depending on the size of your bust, you can mark 1.5 inch. There are 3 points. That first point, this second one, then the third one. Depending on the size of your cup, you can decide to use 1.5 inches, 2 inches. But remember that the center point is always bigger or much, like 0.5 inches more than the one you marked at the first and the last point. So these 3 points, you mark them, then you connect them together to form that kind of line that is usually on your bra cup for corset. So at this point, this is what it looks like. I'm now going ahead to cut that center, the midpoint of the shoulder line. It's actually a style line, okay? I'm going to be cutting it. Then I taped my side bust dart closed, transferring the dart to that style line there. I went ahead now to start cutting out my corset shape. As you can see, I'm cutting this with every carefulness that I need to do it with. So you don't alter the shape of your corset. Okay, so you don't alter the shape. Now I've gone ahead to cut it out and this is what it looks like. I'll go ahead to cut the corset proper. Or the bra cup rather. Okay. So I'll tape these two together. Okay, I'll use my sellotape and hold these two together. Then the dart that went into this part, we're going ahead now to cut it out. So having done that, this is all the pattern for the front. I'm labeling them now. So when I'm cutting it on my fabric, I'm not confused on which part is which and all that. Now the next thing we are going to do is to remove the dart. Remember there is a dart on these bodies, like the front bodies, okay? You have to take off the dart. Now this is what I'm doing. I'm going to be cutting off the dart. Now there is something I'm going to do. I don't want to sew this dart. I want to tape it close on the paper so that I can have a smooth so it can be smooth when I cut it on my fabric. So what I'm going to do now, you're going to be taping it close. The points to put into consideration is your underbust and your waistline. Of course, the part of the hip line is going to overlap. So we'll take the measurement of that part or the hem that overlapped. Then I added a fresh pattern paper and I added it to that part, connecting it from my waistline to that very point. I hope you understand what I just did now. So now to get a curved hemline from your center front, you want to mark 2 inches, 2.5, whatever it is that works for you. I marked it. Then on the side, I'm checking the measure or the length. On the side, you're going to come upwards about 2 inches or 2.5 or 3 inches, whichever one you want. Then connect it to that 2 inches point at the center front that we marked, just to get that curved hemline. You can as well do this when you're done with on your fabric, okay? You can do it on your fabric if you don't want to do it on the paper. So this is all our pattern for the front. Not all. We have the sleeve part of it still left. We've not worked on it. So this is the corset part of the front, okay? Now heading over to that stuff we traced out for the sleeve, I'm going to be marking slash lines. I'm going to be marking lines on it. So these lines are going to be like a guide for me to slash and spread. Then I got a fresh pattern paper, okay? Then I'm going to be cutting this and spreading it out on the fresh pattern paper. Remember, if you want your tool to be so full, you have to spread out very well. But if you want it to be minimal, then you also want to spread out closely. I had to start adjusting mine because I felt it was too close. So I had to start adjusting it. And at the end, I was done spreading it. Then I went ahead to cut it out. Now heading over to the back bodice. The first thing I'm going to do is to take out my neck measurement, not the neck, on the shoulder, the intake I'm using for the shoulder. It has to be same thing with the front. Then I connected it to the center back like so. I'm going to get the sleeve for the back and place it like so. Then use my cello tape and hold it down. So the next thing I'm going to do is to mark this point like so. Please follow what I'm doing. Mark this point like so. Okay. Then connect it to the chest line. Then also connect it to the upper arm side of the back sleeve. So I'm going to be tracing the whole of that part out. I traced it out and this is what it looks like. Of course, that traced part, what we did to the front is what we are also going to do to it. So make sure you label so you don't get confused. Please, I forgot to tell you. Also for the front, make sure you label the shoulder, the sleeve, the neckline, and the part you're going to join so you don't get confused when you cut it out on the tool. Trust me, when you cut it on the tool, it's confusing. Or after you must have slashed and spreaded it, it's confusing. So I separated it. And then I had to cut this part out. So on that line, I marked my bust apart measurement. And from that bust apart measurement, I'm drawing a straight line to the waistline and also to the waist dart, to form a new dart, sort of a new contour dart. That part you're slashing and spreading for the tool effect on the sleeve, you want to duplicate it because you'll be needing it as we go on. And you see why I said you should duplicate it before slashing and spreading it. So that part of the sleeve that is left for the front and back, we're going to be joining them together. Use your cello tape to hold it together to form a whole piece. And then I went ahead to start cutting out on my fabric. Please do not follow this method of cutting. Use your pin to hold it down, then go ahead to cut properly. If you follow this method of cutting, you probably might be changing the shape of your corset pieces. So use a pin to hold it down and then cut accurately. So at this point, these are the pieces for the corset that I cut out. Okay. So I'm going to show you guys how I sewed it. The other one, I've molded it with a thick cloth gum. So I'm going to be showing you guys. You want to sew number 2 and number 3 together. Remember where your center front is. Mark notches for the part that is your center front. You want to sew them together. Then the top part, you now sew it lastly. All right. So I'm putting this here now, and I'll sew it up, and of course take it to my tailor's ham and mold it properly. So after that, this is what we have. I think the iron spoiled a part of it, but not to worry. I think I'll cover it up with something, or an applique or something like that. So I'm going to be sewing this up now. I've sewed it up, guys, and this is what it looks like. Okay, so there's that very design stuff that is optional. I had to add it. Now heading over to the tule part of it. Can you remember this? All right, now you saw what I told you to duplicate. That's where we got the pattern we traced out from to slash and spread this whole thing on. So you want to gather your tool in a way that is the same length, the same measurement as that stuff, right? So that aside, we'll go ahead now to join the back and the front together. You join it, of course, from the side. And after joining it, this is what we have. So that tool, you're going to be gathering it. Remember, you're gathering it to be the same measurement, or the same measurement, of course, with the pattern I told you to duplicate, where you got your slash and spreaded pattern from. So you're going to be sewing like this. You want to turn it over and sew it up until your side seam. Sew up until your side. You know that there's a part of a sleeve that went into this tool, okay? Sew up until your side seam and stitch it up on both sides. We'll go over to do the same thing for the back also. You want to gather it into that very pattern. Make sure it's same measurement to that pattern you used. So I've sewed up that of the back. Now the next thing you're going to do is to join it back and front on the shoulder. On the shoulder, and in extension, the part that went into the sleeve. Okay, you don't have to join this part because that's where your sleeve or your hand will come out from. Okay, so just join the shoulder, the straight line. After joining, this is what it looks like. The next thing we are going to do is to attach the rest of the sleeve. So I marked a notch at my center, which indicates my center sleeve. So from that notch, I'm going to be placing it like so, and then sew all the way to the side. I've gone ahead to sew it up, you guys, and this is what it looks like. Okay, we're almost coming to the end. The next thing now, you don't want your finishing to be looking this way, so we're going to be using our lining to turn it up. I have my lining already that I got from the same pattern I used for my main bodice. So we're going to sew up the lining on the sides. After sewing up line on the sides, you want to sew the hem of your blouse first. Sew up the hem of your blouse first. Make sure everything is in alignment. And after that, you want to put this inwards. Take this up and stitch up like so. Please stitch on the original or on the already allowance that you have. Do not take in more. Stitch on the allowance that you already had. Please do not take in more. So you want to stitch all the way, making sure that every line that is on the main bodice aligns with every line on the lining. Everything aligns, okay? I'm going to have to sew it up, and from the zipper area, I'm going to be turning it out. There was no light here, so I didn't have the time to iron. There was no light, there was no electricity, so I have not ironed it out at this point. The hem, I've not ironed it out at this point. But this is what it looks like, you guys. And at the end, this is what this blouse looks like. Thanks for watching, and I hope this video has helped you to kind of recreate this style. Thanks for watching, you guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.